Hey guys, Sam from Panhandle Precision. Today I'm going to go over two different Kestrel ballistic meters, the Elite Ballistics and the Straight Up Ballistics. Now the purpose of this video is to help you decide on which one of these meters might best suit you. My experience with Kestrels dates back to the mid-2000s when I started shooting long range. I started out with a Kestrel 3500, just this real simple yellow meter, old school style, that I used to measure wind, station pressure, temperature, those kinds of things, and then I would enter them into a ballistic solver. In the summer of 2015, I picked up a 4500, which was a ballistic model of a Kestrel that had a built-in solver, and then in November 2015, the new 5700 Elite Ballistics came out, and I got my hands on one of these. Now I've been using this meter since then, pretty hard, so first off, I'll tell you that there's no difference in durability when it comes to these meters. They're durable. They're waterproof, shockproof, all those kinds of things. Now in the summer of 2016, I started using the new version, or the 5K series Sportsman, which is this meter here, and I did a full review on that. I used it basically for the last half of 2016 for all of my shooting stuff. So we'll come around to that meter in a minute, but in 2018, Kestrel released the ballistics meter at SHOT Show, as a matter of fact, and I came home with one. That's this one right here. I used this meter all year that year in place of my Elite, just to see what it could do. So in reality, these two meters have a lot more in common than they do in differences. But as we get further down the video, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do screenshots and scroll through all the different screens and show you what they're capable of, what each meter can do, and where the big differences are. Right off the bat, I'll tell you that on the weather side, so if you start using one of these Kestrels that has the built-in ballistics, on the weather side, both of these are exactly the same. They do exactly the same things, and they have all the same features. So all, graphing and trending stuff. If you want to do min-max wind, if you want to do temperature graphs to see what it's doing, they both do all of that stuff. It's a full-featured atmospheric meter, which is kind of cool. On the ballistic side, that's where the differences come in. But as far as what they'll do, for what most people do, there's not a lot of difference. So in other words, right now, the biggest use that we have for the meters, this one is actually my son Jake's, is what we're using them for the most is competing in NRL, PRS, things like that. So typical shot distances are going to be from 300 yards out to 13 or 1400 yards at a typical match. I think the furthest shot Jake took last year in competition was 1700 something, and the Elite handled that just fine. But a lot of people, when I started shooting, 1700 yards would have been a long shot. If you could make a first round hit on a 1 MOA target at 1000, you were doing really well. And that's on a shot on something at a range or in conditions that you've never shot in. A lot of people can write down their dope from previous engagements. In other words, they've gone there, they've shot at a target, they know exactly what their dope needs to be on any given day to shoot that particular target from that location with the same conditions. But to be able to go to a range you've never been at, or shooting conditions you've never shot in, or even with a rifle you've never shot, it can be pretty tough if you don't have a good tool and know how to use it. So that's, since November 2015, that's pretty much all we've been using are these meters. I've gone away from all the phone-based ones, all the PDA-based ones, all that stuff. It's been nothing but Kestrels. So they're really good meters. So let's go ahead and just jump right in, and I'll start running you through some screens and show you the differences. Okay, before we do that, let's cover a couple of administrative things. Just so that you know what the badging is all about and what I'm going to be talking about with these two meters. When I say Elite Ballistics, I remember when I did the review on this one, it was tough to figure out what they wanted to call it from all the different vendors and from Kestrel themselves. So, right now I believe they're calling it the Elite Ballistics, which is the new version. That's what this one is. My original one, the OG of November 2015, just says Applied Ballistics on it, but it's an Elite as well. So both of these are Elite meters, and they're both equipped with Link, which is the Bluetooth connectivity feature. Now when we talk about the 5700 Ballistics, it just says Ballistics on the case. Now the Sportsman is discontinued now. The Ballistics replaced it, but with a recent firmware update, so as soon as this one came out basically, with the firmware update in the Sportsman, these two meters are the same inside. They do everything exactly the same way. So if you have a Sportsman and it has link and all that, it's basically a Ballistics now if you do the latest firmware update. Alright, let's fire these up. Now here on the right we have the Elite, and on the left we have the Ballistics. I'll just show you the startup screen of the Elite. Okay, and then here's the Ballistics. Now, one misconception that there is about the Ballistics is that it doesn't use Applied Ballistics as the solver. It does use Applied Ballistics as the solver. Okay, so now we're open. What we're opening now is the weather screen, and the first thing that came up is time and date. So you can set this to however you want. Basically, however you leave the meter is how it opens again. So this is one of the subscreens inside the weather screen. So if you scroll through both of them, you'll see that they basically do all the same things. So let me get to one that's kind of interesting. So here's wind speed. We can go right, and we can actually do a min, max, average, you know, if you were doing some kind of a capture. But they both do everything exactly the same when you're in the weather screen. So let's get out of the weather screen. So you can see at mode, that's where it shows you where you're at. So as we scroll down through these, both of these have Bluetooth. And that's one other thing I'll tell you is that the 5700 Ballistics only comes with link. You can't even get it without it. It's a it's a great bargain. What link is the low energy Bluetooth connectivity system that the Kestrels use to hook up to things wirelessly. So, you know, things like the Kestrel HUD, the heads-up display, rangefinders like the Leica2800.com or the 3200 binoculars or the SIG binoculars that hook to them. But the thing that I use it the most for is hooking up to my phone. So through the phone, through the Kestrel Ballistics or Link Ballistics app, what it allows you to do is do firmware updates and gun management profile. You can also view everything that's happening on the Kestrel remotely on a phone or a tablet or anything like that, as long as it has link. Now, the Elite has an option not to have link. So if you emailed me over the last couple of years and asked me which one of these meters to get, you probably had me tell you that, you know, you're going to have to figure out which one you want according to what you want to do as far as shooting, but I would highly recommend that you get it with link. So I'll just kind of echo that right now. I will tell you that if you're wanting to buy the Elite and not the Ballistics, I highly recommend you get one with link. Okay, so there's our Bluetooth. The data port is the thing on the back, so you don't have to have link to do firmware updates. You can actually buy a cable and do it on your computer. Memory options, that's all the same. Graph scales, display. So here's the difference if you started out with a 4K series, 4500 AB, you know, the old style meter, you had to buy them either with red backlight or white backlight. Now both of these meters give you the option right on the meter, so that it comes with both of them. So we have the auto shutdown, so that's when it would automatically shut this down if you left it turned on. The contrast for the display, and there's our backlight. So you can toggle between white and red. Okay, so that was our display. Let's go into system. Here's one of the first differences. So this is where you would set things like your time and date, calibrate your compass. It shows you the measurements. Basically that's all the measurements that it will do. On the weather side of it, you can turn them on and off. So if you don't need them and you want to be able to scroll through quickly, you can turn off all the stuff that you don't want to use. Let's back up a little bit. Right here is the accuracy first function on the Elite. And this is where you would go to turn it on and off. And you just toggle back and forth. This one on the Ballistics is not an option. Now I don't use the accuracy first function. I think its main purpose is for people who have trained with Todd in his system of using the tremor reticles and fast wind calls, things like that. They have it set up in the meter so that when you go on the accuracy first mode, it complements that style of training. So anyway, the Elite has it as an option, the Ballistics does not. And of course you can change the units, you can change the languages. This is where you do your battery, humidity calibration, all that stuff. They're both the same. Other than the accuracy first thing, they're both the same there. So let's get back into our main screen. We're on weather. We'll go to ballistics. Let's back it up. We'll go over to easy. Okay, both of these have what they call an easy mode, and that came out about the same time as the ballistics. And basically what it is a I would call it probably a foolproof way for somebody with zero experience with a Kestrel to kind of get their feet wet on running the whole thing. And what it does is it keeps you from going too far down a rabbit hole of changing things where you might screw something up. So basically when we get into the screen, it only lets you access these functions. So it lets you, check your gun, make sure you're using the right one. There's the target setup. It says go, so we'll click on that in a second. There's the target range, how to calibrate your muzzle velocity, how to do a compass calibration and do that, and there's a latitude, and that's all it lets you do. So if we go back up here, there's our target setup. We just click on it. It tells you what to do. So there's a capture environment. You start the capture. It'll tell you to swing it around so you can clear the air temp sensor, and then you end it, and it'll tell you the temperature. And then capture direction of fire. You would hit this red button right here after you point it at the target and do your capture. Capture your wind. Actually, you don't even have to do that. You can just use the start button. But capture wind, point the back of the unit into the wind and hit this button and then hit it again. And your wind speed will come up right here in relation to the target. So it'll tell you your direction plus your wind speed. And that's about it. And then it tells you, hey, check your yardage. Does that look okay? Yep, okay, take the shot. It's pretty easy, but okay, let's back out of that. Let's go to our full-on ballistics. Now, one thing I will tell you about all these different functions that I just showed you is once you click on them or turn them on or do anything like that, you have to watch what they do to the settings that you already had in the Kestrel. So if you look, after just going into the easy mode, it has changed my wind to none because I didn't do a capture or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and I'm going to change that. What I like to do is have a right angle, wind speed 2 of 10 miles an hour. And what that allows me to do is have a real quick reference on a 10-mile-an-hour wind no matter what distance I have in the Kestrel. So right now, if you look at my wind speed 1, it tells me to go almost half a mil to the left, and that's all about spin drift. Both of these have spin drift capabilities. They both have Coriolis capabilities. And they also have aerodynamic jump capabilities. So that's one of the reasons why I put it on wind speed 2. And what wind speed 2 does is it lets you disable the aerodynamic jump capability of the meter. So it gives you a straight up and down vertical correction rather than one that is weighted towards a crosswind from the direct right or left. So that's just like how I like to run it that way. But all right, so let's go into our target screen. We'll start picking up some differences right here. So if we look at the ballistics on the left, we can't go any further up. It just comes right out of target range, and that's where we change our target range. The Elite lets you go up 1. So what we have here is a target with an A next to it. This is the first big difference between the two meters. The Elite will let you have solutions for up to 10 different targets at any given time. And you can set that up either with the letter A, B, C, D, and so forth, or you can do 1 through 10 with numbers. But you can scroll through all these different targets and have different conditions and different corrections for all of them at the same time. So basically they're just there, and if you have multiple targets, you can run them all at the same time on the meter. The ballistics, you get 1 target. And if you want to change a target, you got to go through and change everything right there on the spot. So let's come down to target range. They both let you put target range in yards or meters. And if you come down to the next screen, we have an estimate target feature. So what this is for milling targets. So if you know the size of your target, in this case it's 12 inches, and then you know how much that target, how much your reticle on your scope covers on that target. You can just say, for instance, this one right here, 1 mil of my scope is covering 12 inches. So it's doing the math for me and telling me 333 yards. On this side, a 12-inch target, it's only 1/4 of a mil, so it's telling me it's 1,333 yards. So both of them will let you do that. Okay, our next input on the way down here is direction of fire, DOF, and that can either be done manually by scrolling in degrees, or you can point it at the target and push this red capture button. It works the same way on both meters. Let me zero this one out. Alright, so we come down here. This is inclination degrees. So this is the angle to the target from your firing position, up and down. So you can either do that manually like this in degrees, or you can do it in the cosine right there. Okay, our next option is target speed. So this is for shooting a moving target. So if you know what the speed of the target is, you can just put that in here manually. You could just scroll until you get to it. If you want to estimate how fast it's going, you can use the Kestrel. So we would go to estimate, and what you do is you range your target, and then you're going to pick a line in your reticle, something that's easy to see, and you're basically going to watch that target move through your reticle, and at a certain point, so this I have it set for 3 mils, so when the target breaks that 3 mils movement across my reticle, I'm going to input how long it took to do that. So the one on the left took 5 seconds. Below that it says the target's moving 1.5 miles an hour. The one on the right here said 3 seconds, 2.5 miles per hour. But it's a good way to learn, at least generally speaking, how fast moving targets are going. Both meters allow you to do it. Okay, and both meters have 2 different wind speeds you can enter in this, and this is for wind bracketing. So if you have a high speed wind and a low speed wind that you know is out there, you can enter both of them in there and kind of take a shot in the middle of them, see what the difference would be, see what your miss factor would be if you use one or the other or something in between. Or you can shoot into a gust, or you can shoot into a lull. But both of them have both wind speeds. Alright, so one of the cool things about these meters with the latest firmware updates is that they've simplified a lot of this stuff. So in the target screen, it allows you to do anything you want to do. Basically, it has to do with target range, and it starts you right on target range and rolls you right down into wind, so you can change your wind manually from there. So if you come down to the wind screen, you can either be on wind and hit this capture button, and it'll give you a wind speed capture. You hold it up into the wind with the impeller open, and it gives you a snapshot basically, and applies it to your direction of fire in your target screen. Or you can just click on that, and it starts you right there where you see that. But if you look at that, it looks very similar to what we just came out of, and that's because it's the same thing. So if we go up, it brings us back up into all that stuff, which is kind of a cool feature, but they both do it. So let's come down to guns. Now this is, to me, this is the most tangible difference between these 2 meters. So the ballistics meter, gun, will only hold 3 guns, and they just keep scrolling back and forth. Okay, this one will hold up to 30, so you can have multiple guns, multiple loads, multiple all kinds of things, as long as it stays under 30. Alright, let's go ahead and click on this gun profile. So this is where the profiles are. So the ballistics on the left only holds 3. The Elite will hold up to 30 at any given time. Now, it's a big deal if you have a bunch of different stuff you're playing with all at the same time, but it's not that big of a deal if you're just going to be hunting with one rifle or even 2 or 3 rifles. And with Link, you can easily hook up to your phone and download whatever profiles you want to use on the ballistics at any given time. So, the 3 thing is more like a convenience thing to me, because a lot of times when I'm at the range, I'm working with Jake's rifle, I'm working with my rifle, I'm testing different loads, I have a suppressor, this one doesn't have a suppressor. There's all kinds of different things that sometimes you just need more than 3 profiles to make it easy on yourself. But anyway, there's ways around that. So as soon as we get into this screen, it shows you what the gun is, and then the next screen down is muzzle velocity. So when you click on muzzle velocity, you can change your units, you can change the muzzle velocity itself, you can do a calibration of muzzle velocity, which is just, you basically shoot at a target, you tell the Kestrel where it hit, and it tells you where you ought to be. There's the guide that tells you all that stuff. They both have muzzle velocity temperature, so if your ammunition is temperature sensitive, you can actually go in and build a little scale, so to speak, that the Kestrel will follow according to what the ambient temperature is. I don't use that function. My ammo is very temperature stable. Alright, so the next one down is drag model. This is another place where these are two very different meters. So on the Kestrel Ballistics, you have the choice between G1 and G7. You can still pull them right out of the LIT's library, so the AB library of all the different bullets that he's tested, and you can upload that exact G7 BC right into either one of these Kestrels. Very good feature. I've had great luck with Brian Litz's predictions, I guess you call them, or modeling. Usually not very much adjustment on that G7 BC. Alright, rather than showing you on this meter, so this, if I click out of that one right now and go to a, just to show you what the drag model looks like, it's going to come up with a generic model, so it'll probably say 175 Match King, and then when I click back over G7, it's going to change all my settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out and I'm going to show you one of the profiles I have on here that uses a custom drag model. So this 6 Creed profile with 115 RDFs, I have a custom drag model. So that one, it just shows up the BC is 1.000 and it says drag model custom instead of G7 on the ballistics. So the ballistics has no option for custom drag models. Let me line it back up. Alright, so we're right back to that same screen. So you can change your BCs, you can do anything you want here, you just scroll, play with them, whatever you want to do. You can change your muzzle velocity, bullet weight, you can do basically everything on here to change a profile. So all the the important things like your sight height above bore, which is this one. Now here's where they change. When you get down to the next screen, this one just goes to rate of twist, and that's for your spin drift. On the Elite, you can do a 0 height offset. So what this allows you to do is if you want to maintain a mechanical 0 on a scope with a 0 stop, and then you put a suppressor on it and it makes the point of impact 1 mil low or whatever that offset is, you can measure it and put it right here, and it will automatically adjust for it when you take a shot. So if at 100 yards, if I am 1 mil low, it will apply that 1 mil on my long range shot, so it'll actually add it to the correction when I take a shot at distance, and vice versa. If I'm high, it'll take it off, it'll do it automatically, which is kind of cool. And I've actually used that with suppressors, and I've used that swapping barrels back and forth on the same receiver with the same scope bolted down to it without changing my mechanical 0. Now ZO is 0 offset, that's the right left, same deal. The ballistics does not have that option, only the Elite does. So then we get back down to rate of twist, they're both the same there. You can change that, right or left twist. And you can change that according to how many inches it takes to do one full rotation inside the barrel. Here you can change your elevation units, you can do mils, true minute of angle, shooter minute of angle, clicks, centimeters, or inches, and they both allow you to do all of that. And the same thing with the windage. Okay, now when we get down to the bottom of the ballistics in this screen, we're not quite done with the Elite. So down at the bottom of the Elite, it lets you calibrate drop scale factoring. So drop scale factoring is for extreme distance. It's not a basic change your muzzle velocity and change your BC type of thing. It is it's literally scaling your drop for you according to the distance. So now to make this work right, you have to actually shoot it, or it wants you to shoot to that distance, which is not something I do very often with that kind of a rifle. So, but if you're into ELR, Here's where you would go to see if you can actually true up to what it wants you to do. So if you're having a problem, this is an option for you to try to get everything to line out. The Ballistics doesn't have it, the Elite does. Alright, this is our environment screen. I have them both locked right now so that I can show you that they're pretty much the same meters. For a 1200 yard shot, you can see I'm getting the same dope on both of them. When we click on the environment, there's the lock. You can do that outside of the screen as well, just by toggling the right button. But the first one down is latitude. That's, where you are on the planet, basically. Temperature, station pressure, relative humidity, density, altitude, spin drift. You can turn it on or you can turn it off on both meters. Alright, here's another difference. So on the Kestrel Ballistics, that's the end of it. When you get down here on the Elite, what we have is a wind capture. So on the wind capture, it's asking, do you want to do one target, so individually, or do you want to do all targets? That's if you're running multiple targets. Okay, and there's another one. So my son has been using this meter a lot over the last 6 months by using this range card feature. So this is something that the Ballistics does not have and the Elite does. So the range card is exactly what it sounds like. It's a range card, and it's broken down into 25 yard increments, and what it does is it allows you a quick way to scroll through all these yardages without having to input all of them in the main targeting screen. So it's pretty cool. And he uses it a lot for shooting PRS matches, so he'll just get up, into the range where he needs, and he'll start looking at targets and writing them down on his wrist coach. But in the screen, it gives you the elevation correction, wind 1 and wind 2, the lead for a moving target, where the trace is in your scope, so if you can see it, remaining velocity, remaining energy, all those kinds of things, time of flight, how long is the bullet taking to get there. There's how much it's figuring for spin drift at the distance, how much it's figuring on horizontal Coriolis, as well as wind 1 again. So let's go ahead and click out of there. There's another one. Here's target card. So target card is what we were talking about earlier with the 10 different targets. Remember the Elite, you can run 10 different targets on it that you make yourself. You can actually put precise info into the target card so that you're set up for 10 different shots, which is kind of cool. It takes a little bit longer than the range card. In the range card you have to extrapolate, and you can't use perfect data. You only get perfect data for the one shot, so your wind speed and all those things. In the target card you can set it up for every target exactly how you want it. And once again, the Ballistics only allows you to shoot one target at a time. Alright, so in our ballistic screen, basic ballistics. So we have the range, the elevation, what the correction is for that range, what the wind is, wind 1, wind 2. Here's where they also get different. So our range transonic is the same. That's the distance at which the bullet will start to go into transonic mode. The Elite shows you where it goes into subsonic load or mode. Max ordnance, aerodynamic jump, how much it is factoring for that. Vertical Coriolis, horizontal Coriolis, spin drift, trace, drop. How far is the bullet dropping? Would you have to lead it? Time of flight, remaining velocity, remaining energy. And that's where these two are the same. Everything else is a little bit different, but it's mostly ballistics info. So, the kind of exterior ballistics that the bullet is going through, you can actually look at on the Elite. Alright, manage guns, and this is where the 3 guns versus 30 guns really shows up. In manage guns, you can turn them all on and off. So if you just scroll, say I'm only shooting with my 6.5 I would come down here and turn those other 2 off. And that way, there's no way I could actually be clicking on one of those when I should only be clicking on my 6.5, which I'll tell you is a really cool feature for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with a Kestrel. Like Jake, I kept his turned off all the other guns except the one he was going to be competing with, but He's getting a little bit older now. He understands the difference in all these different ones. But again, this one only holds 3 at any given time. This one you can put up to 30. And you could actually have, I could have my 6.547 in there with 30 different combinations of loads and barrels and suppressors and, you know, whatever. You can, you know, however you want to do it. You can set up your profiles differently, but it is kind of cool to have 30 of them right there at your fingertips. Okay, one thing I did forget to mention is I'm running the latest firmware, which is 1.39 as of May of 2020. Alright, let's show you something else. So our max, well, let's just back it down. Let's go to our minimum distance that we can use the Kestrel for dope. Alright, you see they're both 25 yards. So now what I'll do is I'll just see what the maximum is. Okay, the Ballistics tops out at 4,000 yards. The Elite tops out at 5,500 yards. Quite a poke, huh? More like artillery. So one of the questions I get asked when people ask, you know, which one of these should I buy? Can I save money by buying the Ballistics? Will it, you know, will it let me shoot long range? I always ask, what do you consider long range? And one of the things they always come back with, or a lot of guys do, is, can it shoot, you know, can I use it to shoot a mile? Yes, you can use it to shoot a mile. As you can see, they both give me the same dope exactly to shoot 1 mile. So yes, you can use it to shoot a mile. Alright guys, so there's the major differences, if not all the differences, between the Elite and the Ballistics meters. Now the big question is, which one should you get? I've always hated that question because it's never simple to answer. All I can tell you is, based on my personal experience, either one of the meters will work for almost all of the shooting that I do. In fact, either one of the meters will work for all of the shooting that I do. Having said that, there are definitely some features on the Elite that I really like. The biggest one is being able to have all those gun profiles on there all at the same time. You know, with the Ballistics you can get around that by simply having your phone handy and uploading whichever gun profile you want to be using right at the time. My son loves the range card, uses it all the time, shooting PRS and stuff like that. I never use the range card, so you know there's going to be some personal preference involved there. So when you look at these two, break down the price difference between them, it really becomes a preference on which one you want to go with. And a lot of guys, they just want to have the best and not have to think about it. Obviously, you're going to go with the Elite. But the price difference is, retail on the Ballistics is $399. Retail on the Elite is $599 without link. If you want link, it's another $100, so it's $699. Now, if you remember me telling you, no matter what you do, be sure to get the meter with link. And I'll say that again. You cannot add link after you buy it. You have to order it with link. So no matter what, I absolutely recommend link. Now there is kind of a cool thing about these meters. You can upgrade them. You can upgrade the Ballistics meter to an Elite for the price difference. So $300 difference, you can actually turn this one in to an Elite. And the only difference is it won't have the badging on it. But all the stuff inside, all the programming, all that stuff will be exactly the same as an Elite. So you buy the file from Kestrel, they email it to you, you put it on your computer, and then you upload it to your Ballistics and turn it into an Elite. You will need a cable like this one that hooks into the data port on the back, that hooks into your computer and then to the data port, or a dongle, which is just a little device that goes into your USB port and basically adds a Bluetooth connection that you can hook the Ballistics to. Now remember, all Ballistics have links, so that's an option as well. I think this cable is around $60 and the dongle is $30. Now I've used both of them and I prefer the cable. The cable really works well. I like using link for everything except this kind of stuff. So what we're going to do in the next video is we're actually going to, Kestrel has provided me with a code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this Ballistics meter into an Elite. And what I'm going to do is practice that whole thing, figure it all out, get it all so that I can do it smoothly and perfectly. and then I'm going to put it all on video to help walk you through it, or at least let you see what it's all about. Alright, here's a little interesting fact. If you have a 5K Sportsman kicking around, say with like a Bushnell Connex kit or something like that with Link, you could actually upgrade this one as well to an Elite, and it's a little bit less expensive, so it's $190. And I guess that's because of the difference in price when they were selling Sportsman versus Elite. So the ballistics actually, the price came down on the ballistics over what you spent on a Sportsman, which I thought was pretty interesting. But anyway, that's an option. Now another question I get a lot of is, where do I buy a Kestrel? I want to buy one. What's the best place to buy one? I don't work with any kind of retailers where I could recommend, hey, go to this guy to buy your Kestrel. As far as I know, they're all priced pretty much the same. They might be controlled, I'm not sure. But if I were you, I'd just go to, if you're not sure, just go straight to Nelson Killerman, which is Kestrel, and order it right off their Kestrel Ballistics page. I'll have a link to that in the product description or in the video description at the beginning of this video, so you can just click on it and go right to it. If you have any questions at all concerning the video, please leave them in the comment section. I know the guys at Kestrel, the guys and the gals, I know the engineers, they're great people, very smart and very eager to help people with questions about Kestrels. So if you have technical stuff, I recommend going to them. If I can help, I will, but usually what happens is I just ask them anyway. So just give them a shout, give them an email. They're pretty good about answering all that stuff. Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Stay tuned for the next one where we're going to go ahead and do that upgrade on the ballistics and turn it into an Elite. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Impact. Impact.